Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: crude oil risks mount as Hamas ruptures Middle East detente, Russell. U.S. demands condemnation of Hamas at UN meeting, but Security Council takes no immediate action. These are the questions that hang over the attack on Israel. Hamas attack raises questions over an Israeli intelligence failure. What the papers say, October 9. Crude oil risks mount as Hamas ruptures Middle East detente, Russell. Reuters. Crude oil prices rose following a major Hamas attack on Israel, although the relatively modest increase masks the risk of an escalating Middle East conflict. Crude oil futures jumped up to 4.1% in early Asian trade and reached a high of $88.15 a barrel. However, Brent contracts are still below the levels that prevailed for most of last week and below the recent one-year high of $97.69 a barrel. The violence holds little immediate threat to global oil supplies, but the attacks by Hamas have placed a pause on moves to normalize political relationships across the Middle East. U.S. demands condemnation of Hamas at UN meeting, but Security Council takes no immediate action. The Independent. The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting on Sunday to discuss the escalating violence between Israel and Hamas. The United States called for all members to condemn these heinous terrorist attacks committed by Hamas, but no immediate action was taken. U.S. Deputy Ambassador Robert Wood said that while many countries condemned the Hamas attack, not all council members did, hinting that one of them was Russia. Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia denied this, stating that Russia condemns all attacks on civilians. China's ambassador called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to the two-state solution. These are the questions that hang over the attack on Israel. The Toronto Star. On the Jewish holiday of Shemini Atzeret, Hamas fighters launched an attack on Israeli border towns, killing civilians and taking hostages. The attack was a surprise and Hamas fighters were able to roam around Israeli towns killing and taking hostages. The Israeli media reported that at least 700 Israelis had been killed and 2,500 wounded, and the Palestinian Health Ministry reported that at least 400 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip had been killed and at least 1,700 wounded. It is believed that Hamas may have chosen this date because Israel would be less prepared to defend itself on a religious holiday. Additionally, it is widely believed that Israel and Saudi Arabia have been on the verge of signing a treaty that would deprive Hamas of its most powerful friend and ally. Hamas likely saw this as a propitious time to win the support of young West Bank men who have been joining militant groups. The Israeli Prime Minister's obsession with settlements and his government's failure to protect Israelis in border towns has divided the country and could cost him his position. There are also questions about why Israel's security services did not know of Hamas plans, which must be regarded as a massive failure. Hamas attack raises questions over an Israeli intelligence failure. New York Times. The recent attack by Hamas on Israel represents a significant intelligence failure on the part of Israel, according to former and current U.S. officials. Hamas managed to achieve complete tactical surprise, breaching walls and carrying out shooting sprees for hours before the Israeli military could respond effectively. None of Israel's intelligence services had specific warnings of such a sophisticated attack, and it is still unclear why Israel's missile defense system, the Iron Dome, was overwhelmed by the barrage of missiles. Furthermore, it is unclear how Hamas built up such a large arsenal of rockets and missiles without Israeli intelligence detecting it. The success of Hamas attack raises questions about Israel's focus on threats from Hezbollah and the West Bank rather than Gaza, as well as the number of Israeli forces on leave or distant from the southern border during the attack. The answers to these questions could affect the reputation of Israel's military and intelligence agencies, as well as the political future of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What the papers say, October 9. The Independent. The newspapers in Britain are focused on the conflict in the Middle East, with Israel declaring war on Hamas and Gaza City. The Guardian reports on the escalating violence and the death toll surpassing 1,000 in Israel. The Eye expresses growing fears for 100 hostages in the Middle East. The Times simply states stunned Israel goes to war, while the Financial Times declares that Israel is at war. The Daily Mail describes merciless terrorists taking Israelis hostage. The Daily Express highlights Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's pledge that terrorism will not prevail. The Daily Telegraph focuses on the U.S. government sending warships and jets to help Israel. The Daily Mirror features an exclusive interview with Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves and her election promises. The Sun covers the escalating row between Simon Cowell and his fellow Britain's Got Talent judge David Walliams. The Daily Star reports on France's bed bug crisis, with 7 schools being closed due to infestation concerns. American Airlines pilot union calls for stopping flights to Israel, citing declaration of war. Associated Press. The Pilots Union for American Airlines has directed its members to refuse to fly to Israel due to the ongoing war between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza. The union president cited the U.S. State Department's advisory on the unpredictable situation in Israel and the potential danger to aircraft due to mortar and rocket fire. Israel recently declared war on Gaza in retaliation for an attack by Hamas. Israel's UN envoy decries war crimes as UN Security Council meets. South China Morning Post. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, has accused Hamas of war crimes and called for the obliteration of the group's infrastructure. The comments came as the UN Security Council met to discuss the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Erdan called on the international community to fully support Israel and condemn the actions of Hamas. The Security Council held a 90-minute meeting but did not issue a statement. The U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, said that it was not a priority for Washington at the moment. Inquiry to open into claims British soldiers summarily killed 80 Afghans. The Guardian. A public inquiry investigating allegations that British SAS units summarily killed 80 Afghans is beginning. Families of the victims are hoping the inquiry will uncover the truth behind the deaths. The inquiry will start with 3 days of opening statements, although large sections will be conducted without the public or press present due to official concern about revealing SAS identities and techniques. The Ministry of Defence, MOD, will refer only to UK Special Forces, following a ruling from the presiding judge Lord Justice Haddon Cave, who rejected MOD applications for secrecy in the summer. Israel and Hamas battle around Gaza as Netanyahu warns of long and difficult war. New York Times. Israeli troops engaged in a second day of fighting with Palestinian militants in Israeli territory on Sunday. The attacks have been described as the worst in decades. The Israeli military has begun an offensive phase that will continue until objectives are achieved. There have been reports of hundreds of Israelis being killed, and at least 413 Palestinians have been killed, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The U.S. has condemned Hamas and pledged military assistance to Israel. The violence threatens to upend the campaign to normalize ties between Israel and Arab nations in the region. How Israel was duped as Hamas planned devastating assault. Reuters. Hamas successfully deceived Israel for 2 years, leading Israel to believe that Hamas was not interested in a confrontation. During this time, Hamas fighters were being trained and drilled, often in plain sight, according to a source close to Hamas. Hamas constructed a mock Israeli settlement in Gaza where they practiced military landings and storming it, even making videos of the maneuvers. They also refrained from military operations against Israel, while another Gaza-based group, Islamic Jihad, launched its own attacks. The restraint shown by Hamas drew criticism from supporters, building the impression that Hamas was more concerned with economic issues than starting a new war. Israel was caught off guard by Hamas' attack, which involved a barrage of rockets fired from Gaza, fighters on hang gliders crossing the border, breaching barriers with explosives and motorbikes, and storming the Israeli army's southern Gaza headquarters. The attack was a huge failure of the intelligence system and the military apparatus in the south, according to retired General Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Russell, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, we have gathered some intriguing news from the Middle East that has sent shockwaves through the region and the global oil market. But don't worry, I'm here to break it down for you in a fun and informative way. Firstly, let's talk about the recent Hamas attack on Israel. Crude oil prices saw a modest increase following the attack, but the real risk lies in the potential escalation of conflict in the Middle East. While global oil supplies are not immediately threatened, the attacks have put a halt on the efforts to normalize political relationships in the region. It seems like Hamas has disrupted the delicate balance that was slowly being achieved. The United States demanded condemnation of Hamas at a UN meeting, but no immediate action was taken. This highlights the complexity of the situation and the differing opinions among council members. Russia denied any favoritism towards Hamas, while China called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to the two-state solution. It's clear that finding a solution won't be easy, and diplomacy will play a crucial role in the coming days. Now, let's move on to the questions that have been raised by this attack. The timing of the attack on a Jewish holiday seems to have caught Israel off guard. Additionally, there are suspicions that Hamas saw an opportunity to gain support from young West Bank men and disrupt a potential treaty between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The failure of Israel's security services to detect Hamas plans is a significant intelligence failure, and it raises questions about the country's focus on other threats and the political future of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In the midst of all this, the British newspapers are focusing on the conflict in the Middle East, with headlines declaring war and expressing growing fears for hostages. It's clear that the situation is capturing the attention of the global community, and it's important that we stay informed and engaged. Lastly, the Pilots Union for American Airlines has directed its members to refuse to fly to Israel due to the ongoing war. This highlights the safety concerns and the unpredictable nature of the situation. It's a reminder that the conflict has far-reaching implications beyond the region itself. In conclusion, the recent Hamas attack on Israel has brought about a new wave of uncertainty and risks in the Middle East. The global oil market is on edge, diplomacy is being tested, and questions are being raised about intelligence failures and the political future of Israel. It's a complex situation that requires careful attention and analysis. Now, I turn to you, my dear viewers. What are your thoughts on this situation? Do you have any questions or insights to share? Let's engage in a lively discussion and explore the different perspectives. The 6 Degrees world is all about connecting and exchanging ideas, so don't be shy. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.